death. So now, just to end this episode, can you just touch on the whole resurrection part? Like, let's talk a little bit about that.
Can I get a little dirty in here?
Yeah, you only got X amount of minutes, so don't get crazy.
So there's a symbolism, right, in mythologies of the death and resurrection of heroes. There's a constant that, right? So the death, let's look at the death and the resurrection of Christ, right? From a metaphorical standpoint rather than, religious standpoint. And the idea is, because Christ is the pinnacle of a hero's journey and the embodiment of it,
right?
In a story. If you look at it just from the metaphorical standpoint of the story, right? He died. He sacrificed himself willingly. The death was imminent. He knew it. The night before he prayed, is there some other way besides this? Right? He prayed, cried. Is there some other way besides this? Because this is painful. Right? So he is giving himself, right? For a cause, for an idea, a new idea that came out of all this environment. Again, you're dying to the old and you're bringing into the new. So he died, metaphorically speaking, in the story, right, to be resurrected again in a heavenly, spiritual, figured, right? Meaning that he was able to bring together all these opposing forces into one, right? And ascended to heaven in that totality. And as a consequence of that, of that process, of that story, the weight of Christianity came about. Metaphorically speaking, that's the stuff that needs to happen in you. Not a physical death, but the idea of a spiritual death is that you die to your animal instinct. And what I mean by animal instinct is our predispositions, our social conditioning, our the marriage of our opposing forces, that you die to all that and you resurrect as the true manifestation of the universe from that point of view of integration. And thus, by the act of you being and you're living, you bring forth something new. You see this stuff happening all the time. On the individual level, it's happening really, really fast. On the macro level, it is happening fast. And it's drawing a lot of confusion because people are dying to all ways of thinking, which is constantly happening. Evolution's happening and new generations come in. And as we progress, there's valid points to the old ways, but there's points that are obsolete. And we can't go willy-nilly just implementing everything that's new because chaos is going to ensue. See? The gas and the pedal. Right? So Christ resurrecting, that idea of resurrection is that idea of letting go of all those stuff, integrating all the opposing forces and living from that point and creating from that point. I would say primarily living for that point, because what's more powerful than a parents that bring up a child, or couples, they just say parents, couples, whatever, that take that same energy to bring a child together. A society that understands these polar opposites and is able to find a middle ground. That's, balance, and then living from there, but we sometimes get off balance. But this happens to people whether or not they recognize it or they're able to articulate it. It's whether or not they just really. But it happens. It happens all the time. It happens.
I think some people recognize it and some people just don't. I think more people than not recognize it, and I think they title it as a mental breakdown, or I lost my shit, or what do you call that, midlife crisis? You know what I mean? And that's what we're talking about here.
I don't know. I can't be a judge. I can't be judgmental on it. And I don't know exactly. And I'm just a participant. I've been to a therapist a couple of times. And I said my grievance, stated my case, and all that stuff, right? But I've never had anyone talk to me in a way to tell me, this is normal. Because what you're doing is that you're transitioning from being a young man to just being an adult right now. And now you got to start learning to make different choices, and you got to take responsibility. And so even though this happens, there's going to be people in your life that are going to not be okay. You have to either figure out a way to interact or find another solution, right? And I don't know if they talk to people about that this is okay. I know that in a lot of institutions that I've been on, the purpose is to maintain the status quo, right? And this is just me, just thinking out loud. The movement of mental health and the movement for that, is it because we have to figure out a way of coping with this way of living, or is it the way of living that we really need to be focusing on to truly change, bring a death about to that, to bring a change? But it's as if the remedies for issues is to be able to find ways of dealing with it, either through medicine or through or coping with something that could be doing more harm to us.
Yeah, we find ways to put Band-Aids on things like this rather than just face it.
Yeah,
is what.
So death. I mean, looking at the like dying to your persona, dying to those internal forces, and going through that internal journey, which manifests its weight on the outside, might be a better alternative than than just talking about it.
Or masking it.
Or masking it. I mean, like, what are you doing with it?